Yeah, I'm Roger, by the way. Did I introduce myself? I'm Roger from the UK and one of the co-founders of Extinction Rebellion. And I've done quite a lot of group process type stuff in the past. And this is, as I say, a workshop that we used to do a lot in the cooperative circles in the UK. All right. Well, the first thing you can obviously start off with is just having a go around, and people can say where they're from and what have you. If you've got the time, it's a good idea to have another go around or split people up into groups of 2 and 3, and they can talk about their experience of groups and why they don't work very well, which is always quite entertaining because everyone's got their favorite dire meeting story. 10 hours to decide where to put the toilet block, that sort of thing. And but we won't do that because it's reasonably straightforward. And you can just do it, and once people come out of their breakout groups, their little groups, then one person can just share a story. So that gets everyone settled into, oh yeah, meetings, they're a bit of a problem sometimes, and why they are a problem. So the second section of the workshop, which we will do, is things that basically make the workshop work well, or a meeting work well. So things are going to be participatory. Why doesn't each of you think of one thing that you should do before a meeting to make sure it's going to work well, or once you get to the room that you're going to have the workshop or meeting in? So maybe one of you can volunteer 1 or 2 things.
So I like to have a checklist for all the tools that I need, whether it's a whiteboard or erasers, the different handouts, whatever we're using for the training or the meeting. And I also like to have an agenda ahead of time that gets sent out so people can see it and know what we're going to talk about, and they have a chance to prepare for it.
Great. Any other variations on the theme?
I wonder if, kind of setting up how the meeting works, being explanatory in the beginning as far as how we communicate with each other and being respectful and that sort of thing, just setting up the meeting in expectations.
Yeah, great. We're going to come on to that in a little bit more detail. Anything else, Daniel or Domo?
The environment of the room being conducive to being able to see each other, and arranging a circle of chairs so that everyone can see each other. Yeah,
great. And it's a good idea for it not to be too hot or too cold, and often you forget these little details. Apparently, if you're in a cold room, there's a high likelihood everyone won't like the meeting subliminally. While if it's a warm room, as long as it's not too warm, then people at least feel reasonably comfortable. Same with light levels and noise. You want to somewhere definitely where there's not loads of noise going on, and where you've got a reasonable amount of light. And all those sort of little basic things. Anything else anyone can think of?
Maybe some clarity about what the meeting's for.
Yeah, you can say something at the beginning. Yeah, we'll come on to that. Anything else about what happens before you actually start the meeting?
It can be nice to have some refreshments, or make sure that there's a way for everybody to get something to drink. Everybody knows where the restrooms are. When how long the meeting is going to be, or if there's going to be a break later.
Yeah, that's all good. So the biggest thing that you haven't mentioned is welcoming people into the space, which often gets forgotten. So people come in the room, go up to them, or make sure someone goes up to them if it isn't your thing, and say, "Hi, I'm Joe. Thanks for coming to the meeting. Where are you from?" Get into a little bit of small talk. Need someone that likes to do small talk. I'm not very good at small talk. Well, I've got better in my old age, but someone that's good with that, and say, "Yeah, do you want a tea or whatever you have in America, a beer, or maybe not beer, but anyway, something." Some refreshments, biscuits, cookies on the table. The more you can make it into a little bit of a get-together atmosphere, the better. Everyone feels relaxed. You put them in next to someone, they can have a little chat before people come in. Don't have that sort of big silence thing going on where everyone's sitting there feeling a bit awkward. And, you know, so you really want to have a little buddy with you if that's not quite your thing, so that people come in and think, oh, this is cool, you know, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so those are the main things, obviously. Yeah, making sure the room's okay, everyone knows the time of the meeting, how long it's going to be. People need to know that beforehand, the agenda. So it's good to make a little checklist. And I'm hoping in the documentation people have for XR America on running meetings, they can have that little checklist. So, you know, people like checklists and just go, okay, I'm doing this meeting. Oh my God, I've forgotten the biscuits, you know, that sort of thing. All right, so, you know, that's the starting point. So I'm going to basically go through 4 or 5 different sections. I'm going to say something around what you say at the beginning of the meeting. So we'll do that. And then we're going to how to encourage participation. So how to ask people to speak or encourage people to speak. And the converse, which is a little bit more tricky, which is asking people not to speak because they keep speaking. So the name of the game in meetings, the main determinant of empowerment, and the research I did at King's College, just to blow my own trumpet a bit, is that people engaging in the act of speech is a major determinant, if not the key determinant, of whether they feel like they had a good meeting. In other words, if you're sitting there for an hour or so without saying something, even if you think you're quite a cool sort of person, you're still going to come out of the meeting with a fairly sort of, you know, glum feeling. Like, what was I doing for an hour? Well, if you get to speak, even if you're a bit annoyed about things, doesn't matter. Once you start speaking, everyone's chirps up and go, oh, you know, I sort of subliminally start feeling like that was good. So being sort of participatory, it's not just an ethical principle, which is obviously everyone's equal and they should be allowed to speak. It's also like a good psychological principle in terms of encouraging mobilization. So bear that in mind. So those are those 2 elements. And the other 2 elements are about how to come to decisions, which is going to be the more key element of this workshop, which is, as everyone's aware, making decisions in groups can be tricky at the best of times. And it's certainly quite difficult if you've got lots of people. We can come on to that. But it's basically how to facilitate. There's one biggest takeaway from this workshop. As a facilitator, it's not just keep stack, as we say in the UK. I don't know if you call it that in the US, but you know, a lot of facilitators come along and they say, right, we're talking about X. And then they just take a bunch of people and people just ramble on and ramble around. And, you know, after about 10 minutes, you're none the wiser because you haven't proactively intervened to aid the group in coming to a decision. So that's probably the key skill that I'm going to hopefully try and share with you this workshop. And then the last little section is what happens when no one can agree. You know, hopefully people haven't come to blows, but it's getting a little bit tricky and you don't really know what to do. So what are the options and what have you? So this workshop basically facilitates the self-organizing system, which people should read, which is basically how to run a group and what a group is about and its mandates and what have you. So that's the sort of dry side of it. This is the more sort of human skill side of it, how to actually make a meeting flow. And then possibly there's going to be a document on how to be in teams, because being in teams generally, of course, is quite difficult because dealing with human beings with their, you know, interesting characteristics. And it's useful to know how to give and take and what have you. So there's a 3-track approach as I see it in terms of making groups work well, and this is one of them. Okay. All right, so we're going to start off with what you say at the beginning of a meeting. Now, in Extinction Rebellion American and with a lot of XR groups, you do have quite a lot to say compulsorily, as you might say, at the beginning of a meeting. And that's because we sort of sussed out a while ago that it's really great to actually say things. And I would say, on the basis of my experience, that if you can sort of lay out the rules of a meeting at the beginning, that gives you a sort of 80% chance of having a good meeting. And if you don't lay out the rules at the beginning of a meeting, you've got a 20% chance, particularly with people that aren't used to sort of participatory meeting structures, which, you know, includes most people, because most people in society, of course, don't, you know, they're usually in meetings where someone's just telling them what to do. So it's quite a new experience. All right. So obviously we've got in Extinction Rebellion, we've got a respect statement which says, you know, people should be kind and listening to each other and what have you. And we've also potentially in XR America got a purpose statement. So I'm going to assume that those are fine, but just to give ourselves a little bit of practice, let's say you've got a group that hasn't met before for the sake of argument. Instead of, you're going to read this stuff out, which is fine, that's the formal bit, but I still think it's probably worth saying a little bit about how you expect people to act in the meeting, or just to humanize it. So maybe someone can just say, make up something. Don't worry, by the way, we're going to do loads of role play. So if it's not quite right, that's really good because it enables other people to put you right. So I don't think it has to be like spot on first time round. But if one of you're in a meeting, you're in, Kentucky, XR, America, second meeting, people aren't quite sure about what it's about. You're standing up as a coordinator, you've done your standard spiel, and then you're just going to say something about settling the meeting down. So if someone have a little go for, say, 30 seconds, what you think you might want to say.
Did you say settling and eating down?
Settling people down, just easing people into the meeting. Yeah, sorry. Lost in translation now. If something sounds a little bit weird on this workshop, if people are listening, it's probably because I haven't got my words out in the right order, so don't panic. Yeah, okay.
You're saying something like, hey, everybody, so glad to see you tonight.
Yeah, you just start off. Just start off as if you're talking to them, like you're role-playing it. So just stand up and off you go.
We're doing Extinction Rebellion meetings are different than what we're used to, a lot of us. So we're going to read out these statements of purpose and respect, just to help us all get on the same page with creating this regenerative culture that we really want to live in.
Great. So nice and enthusiastic, positive tone. That's good. Someone else have another go. Maybe you want to explain regenerative culture. So someone else have a go. Actually, I'm going to be proactive and ask one of you, because otherwise you get the bystander effect. Do you know that? Where everyone's sort of thinking, maybe I should, maybe you shouldn't. So yeah, Michelle, have a go at just starting the meeting.
Thank you, everyone, for coming here today. I know everyone took some time out of their day to be here. And to start, we're just going to review just our respect statement that we go through, and just acknowledge sort of the regenerative atmosphere that we like to hold of care, respect for each other, and yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So one thing you can sort of add to that is just expand a little bit on the generalities. So one of the good things at beginnings of meetings to try and talk about specifics in your little intro, because one person's idea of being caring is certainly not another person's potentially. So JLo, why don't you have another go and actually say one or two specific things you want people to do in this meeting in terms of relating to each other.
Yeah, cool. So hey everybody, welcome. So glad you came out tonight. Really appreciate you taking some time. I know that most of us are here for different reasons. You might be curious, you might be interested, you might have been brought by a friend. So there might be some differences of opinion in the room because everybody's coming to this from different places and from different backgrounds. So one of the things that we have is called regenerative culture, and that's really a culture of being respectful and listening and being kind to each other. So if someone says something and calls out an idea that you don't like, we don't shout that down or shame it or call it something we don't like. We allow that person to have their thoughts and their experience and their expression. So let's all be respectful together, be kind, and we're gonna go ahead and get started.
Great. So Domio, do you wanna finish off with the cumulative wisdom of the other three?
Yeah, we just add to that as we meet together, we want everyone to feel like they're welcome and that we want to hear their contribution. So we try to structure things so that people get the opportunity to speak. And so that means, if you don't tend to speak very often, please go ahead and jump in. And if you find yourself speaking a lot, to maybe emphasize the practice of listening.
Yeah. That's spot on. I try not to give people brownie points, but yeah, that's a key thing, particularly when you're dealing with a new group, is to actually specify what respectfulness means. And what it means is if you feel you've been speaking for quite a lot, then allow someone else to speak. And if you haven't spoken, you are very welcome to speak in a space. So please do so, or words to that effect. And the reason why that's important is if you're dealing with a new group where people aren't used to this culture, then if you actually set down the ground rules like that at the beginning of the meeting, then when you have to challenge someone, as we will in a minute, to suggest that maybe they have spoken enough, then it's like it's not such a blow to their ego. It's like, oh, they've reminded that they already have heard what the rules of the game are. And again, that's quite a subliminal thing. It's not like they're signing a piece of paper. It's more that people do like to fit in, unless they're quite a problem person, with what the group norms are. So you've told them what the norms are. So that goes a long way to enabling people to just have a reasonably functional meeting without some person, taking the floor, as you might say, as sometimes happens. Okay, so that's good. So again, make a few notes of what you want to say in that sort of informal, humanizing introduction. It's always cool, of course, to do this sort of thing with two people. So, one of you gets up and says something, and then the other person gets up and says something, and they can sort of fill in on something that maybe you haven't got right. It's also a good idea, of course, to introduce yourself. Depends what the meeting is, but just to say a little bit about your background and, how you came to your little journey to being here. There might actually be a section in the meeting about that, in which case you don't need to expand on that. But people love to know that a little bit of your story, particularly if they don't know you. So yeah, so let's hope the meeting goes reasonably well from now on. So the next thing to do, and these next 2 points aren't that massive, particularly once a group's got to know each other. Once a group's got to know each other, people do remember not to talk too much, or people do tend to contribute, particularly if they've got something to do. But let's go through it sort of, in a brief way, because I think it's sort of helpful to get an idea of what the ethos of a participatory meeting is. So the first thing is someone's not speaking, okay? And we've all been in meetings where you're aware after a while that there's someone there who hasn't said anything, or maybe there's 3 or 4 people, and it's just a little bit embarrassing. And you're thinking, oh, I wish they would say something. And obviously you don't want to put pressure on them and, shame them or anything like that, because they're just going to go back into their shell a little bit. So I'm going to give a few little verbal routines. Quite a lot of this workshop is basically about scripts. And obviously, when I give a script, doesn't mean you have to follow it religiously. It's just to give you a feel for the sort of approach you can have. So for the sake of argument, the A way of speaking to someone is to say their name and then say what we're talking about and ask them for their opinion. Now, a lot of people, this is just a small point, but I think I'll mention it, which is a lot of people ask someone if they've got something to say. If you ask someone if they've got something to say, the subliminal message is that maybe they haven't. But the fact of the matter is everybody's always got something to say. The reason why people are being quiet is because they're shy or pissed off. So it's best to assume the reality that they've got something to say and ask them. So it doesn't subliminally give them the option of going, I haven't actually got anything to say. So I'll just say, I'm talking to Michelle, I'll say, Michelle, we're talking about organising the action on Saturday and the transport. So what ideas have you got about how to get there? Do you see what I mean? So I'm not saying, have you got something to say on this topic? I'm asking something specific. And then we can do a little bit on how you might draw people out. So what I will ask then, well, I'll sort of start going around in a circle. If you do this workshop, by the way, I've just remembered, it's good to just go around in a circle rather than ask for volunteers for things, so everyone knows their turn is coming. So I'm going to continue going around in the circle. So Dana, if you can, yeah, we're talking about an action on Saturday, and you're going to ask JLo to speak about it. So if you can just do that little shaboodle, that'd be good.
We're trying to figure out how we're going to get there. To the action, transportation to the action. I know that the college kids are planning to do a bike ride over there, but I happen to know that there's a couple people that older people that I was going to help get there that are going to need to either take the public transit or have a real nice car deliver them right to the action, because the bus stop is pretty close by. Those are some of my thoughts. J-Lo?
Yeah.
Okay, Jello doesn't have to say anything. That's cool. So that was slightly different than my little routine. So you basically summarized or said what you thought about it, and then you just said J-Lo with a question mark behind it, right? Which is cool because you used his name. And then the idea is J-Lo's going to draw himself out because it's not, the assumption is he's got something to say. So that's a cool way of doing it. So J-Lo, do you want to ask Michelle to say something in a way that's opens up the communication, as it were?
Yeah. So Michelle, we've been talking about different ways to get people over to the action, and I'm wondering what your ideas are about that.
Okay, stop. So you did the traditional way, which is to oh no, you did it right. That was right. Apologies. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, you're assuming she's got something to say, and then Michelle's going to say something. All right. So let's make it a little bit complicated, just to make it a bit more interesting. So Michelle, you're the facilitator, and Domio is a little bit new and is a little bit shy, stroke pissed off. So she's going to say, I haven't really got anything to say. And what I want you to do is to summarize what she's just said. So she's going to say, yeah, I haven't really got anything to say. See, what you're going to say is, as a question, you're going to say, so you haven't really got an opinion on that? And then Domio is going to actually open out and blossom into communication. So let's see how this one goes. Okay, off you go, Michelle.
So Domio, so we're talking about getting to the action and getting the banners out there, and the discussion is around how that is going to happen, and it sounds like you're not really sure that there's really anything that you have to say, and I'm just wondering if perhaps we give you some space to I just feel that there's something percolating in there, and I just want to give you the space to be able to offer that.
Well, I guess I'm just wondering whether maybe people should just find their own way to the action instead of us trying to figure it out for them.
Okay, so Michelle, you summarize that as a question.
Summarize that? So it sounds like your sense is that it might be better for other people, for people to kind of decide how those banners would get there. Did I summarize that correctly?
Yeah, or how they themselves are going to get there too.
Okay, so this is like a fundamental part of empowering people is to summarize what they said, particularly if you summarize it as a question, so your inflection goes up at the end of the sentence. So it's like, yeah, I haven't really got much to say about that. And then you say, so there's not much you're thinking about that one. And they go, no, well, I do think it's a crap idea actually. And then you go, yeah, so you're really not into that idea. No, I'm not actually. And the reason is, and then they're off, right? They're off and away. Notice this with kids. I mean, adults all like kids really at the end of the day. It's like once they know they're being listened to, then people start opening up. So that's the general idea with that one. Yeah, so it's not necessarily assuming that they've got something to say. You don't want to start assuming anything about them. As soon as you start assuming things about people get pissed off because you're basically trying to define them. What you want to be saying is just acknowledging where they're at that particular second in time. So let's do a final little run on that one. So Dana, you're the facilitator. Jolo's a little bit nervous and pissed off, and he's going to open up due to your loving listening process. So Dana, off you go.
Hey, JLo, I'm hoping that you might share your thoughts with us about this last thing we've been talking about the transportation.
Yeah, I don't know much about transportation.
So it sounds like you don't really have any opinions about this matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we should all just find our own way there. I mean, I don't know why we're organizing it this way.
You feel like it might make more sense for everybody to just find their own way to the action.
Yeah, you know, I mean, because I'm going to be working out at the gym just before, and I don't want to have to be responsible for picking anybody up. I mean, you know what that's like when you have your own schedule and someone's trying to make you do something. I just feel like, you know, I should be autonomous here. And I don't know why we're trying to make everybody do this on, you know, as a group.
Right. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. A+. Okay, so I mean, obviously, it doesn't always work out like that, and so maybe every now and again someone genuinely hasn't got something to say, but you know, 9 times out of 10 someone has, and that's just the sort of interaction you're going to get with your normal, you know, your normal guy in the streets, right? He comes into a meeting. What we've got to realize is most people find meeting culture extremely alienating, and they have got things to say, you know, normal people and all that stuff, and they have got things to say, and that's how you introduce them. And then he's going to feel cool for the rest of the meeting now, because he's said his little bit, right? He wasn't expecting to be spoken to. And this is how most people are treated most of the time in their work lives and their family lives, is no one's actually listening. No one's actually supporting you. And that's, it doesn't matter whether it's about climate change or anything, they're going to come out that meeting with a glow because someone at last paid them attention. So don't think this is like a small matter, right? These little things are really cool and important. Okay, so let's go on to the slightly embarrassing sort of reverse, which is someone's talking too much. And dare I say, it's usually a bloke of a certain age, but sometimes not. But so what we want to do here is to say the name, number one, thank them for the contribution, say, and summarize their point and say what a good point that is, and then say other people or someone else hasn't yet spoken, and then without asking their permission, turn to the other person and ask their opinion. So if you start asking permission, that assumes they've got a right. So you just assume you've got a right because you've already laid down the plans. So obviously it's variations on the theme. So Domio, you can be a very assertive Buddhist, and you know from your spiritual, you know, training exactly how we should be on the action on Saturday, and you just feel like it's important to share your extensive spiritual knowledge, and you know, obviously everyone else just needs to know what that is. And Michelle is going to be the facilitator, and she's going to kindly interrupt you and do a little shift routine to Dana, but Dana doesn't have to say anything. Okay, so off you go, Dana.
Well, we have a activity that we do that's called meta practice, where you're wishing well for other people, and I think it's essential that at this action that we all engage in this practice, that we all, you know, have a moment of silence, and then we you know, call to mind the people that are opposing us, and that we go through this prayer.
Romeo, thank you. I think I'm hearing what you're saying. It sounds like it's really important to you that we all participate in a level of silence and recognition of what's happening. And I think that's a great idea. I think that's fabulous. Dana, what do you think about the activities on the event this coming weekend?
Yeah, great. So yeah, that was pretty much spot on, and Damien was impressively eloquent in her wisdom, so that was great as well. And so the important thing to understand here is the best of us, not least myself, as you know well now, are fully capable of rambling on, and so 9 times out of 10 someone's rambling on, not because they're a bad person, but just because they're super enthusiastic about their own point of view. So it's like over-empowerment, as you might say. So it's not like, it's fine to interrupt them as long as you do that little routine, say their name, and you did that really well. Just saying, yeah, you know, what you're saying is really important, and you sound genuine about it, because it is a really good point, right? The point is not that it's not a good point. The point is that Dana hasn't actually got to speak for the last 15 minutes. And the other thing you can say is if someone's being a little bit more tricky, is as you know, at the beginning of the meeting, we made this arrangement that everyone's going to get time to speak. So I want to pass on to JLo now. Or JLo, you haven't spoken for a while. I'd really be interested in your viewpoint. So let's see. So yeah, let's do one more then. So Dana, I know you've got really strong opinions on where the action should be on Saturday. So feel free to expand on that at great length. And Domio, you can kindly summarize that and introduce that and pass over to the very reticent JLo, who is, as we all know, doesn't have much to say. So Dana, off you go.
Basically, like I keep saying, you know, if we do not have a way to get people if people can't have access to the action, how do we expect to have diversity at the action? And so that's why we have to have this conversation. We have to figure out the details.
Thanks,
right now.
Dana, that's you're making such a great point here. If we can't get people to the action, it's not going to happen. I just wonder, JLo, I haven't heard from you in a little while. I mean, what do you think about where we should hold this action?
Yeah, so that's cool. And yeah, so you could just add in that extra piece, which is, yeah, Dana, that's a fantastic contribution. I really actually agree with that myself. And at the same time, what we agreed at the beginning of the meeting was we're just allowing everyone to speak because we're a newly formed group. And JLo, if you'd like to speak, that'd be great. It tends to not be a good idea, strictly speaking, to remind people they haven't spoken, because that tends to embed that self-image, if you see what I mean. So it's generally not a good idea to describe anything about a person, whether it's a blameful or praising. You know, I mean, you can do it a little bit, but it starts like stereotyping people, and people don't need that. What people need is just space to speak their own truth, as it were. You know, strictly speaking, I mean, these things, you know, you can go a little bit off track, it's fine. Okay, so we haven't got loads of time left, so I'm going to move on to the main two things. But just to say, if you're watching this video and you're doing this training, obviously what you do, let's say you're doing it with 20 people, then you split people up into groups, right? And you have 3 or 4 people in the group, and then people can analyze each other's contribution. And it's obviously quite amusing because, you know, you can get people being quite stroppy, just refusing to speak or refusing to shut up. And then you can have a little bit of a laugh about it. So that's that little section. So feel free to expand on it. You can spend like 1.5 hours doing this workshop, ideally, I guess. And obviously, if there's more than 10 people, as is a general rule, split people up into groups to do it. All right, so we're going to move on to building consensus, as it's traditionally called. Consensus is a bit of a loaded word, so I'm not going to use that because different people have different ideas around it. But basically, what we're going to do, what we're going to do is try and de-ideologize it, as it were, and say, okay, so everyone goes into a meeting wanting to actually come out with agreements. Like everyone's agreed about that. So how do you do that? And the biggest mistake, in my humble opinion, is that the facilitator doesn't actually build decisions, right? And if you probably noticed, you know, I noticed when one of you was role-playing the facilitator, being a facilitator, if you do it properly, is a full-on job. You've got to really concentrate, right? You don't just sit there twiddling your thumbs while people ramble on. You've got to be thinking all the time, okay, where's this going? You know, and which is sometimes it's a good idea to have 2 people if it's a larger group, so you can sort of work together on it. But let's say, okay, so you're coming on to a decision, and the general idea here is to summarize agreement, get it acknowledged, write it down as a partial agreement, summarize remaining disagreement, and then ask people to focus on that remaining disagreement, okay? And the psychology here is that if people feel they've made a half decision, they all start feeling better. What you generally find in a meeting is within about 5 minutes, it can go downhill if you don't get agreement. And the reason is everyone's sort of getting a little bit pissed off that nothing's getting decided. And then you get that sort of decision by attrition, you know, like someone just says whatever, which is never a great idea. So you basically, as a facilitator, your main function in a way is to maintain the morale of the meeting through always encouraging people, a bit like a therapist would, in terms of, you know, summarizing what the person's saying, except you're obviously doing it with a group. So what I want, where are we up to? I want Michelle and Domio, you're having a bit of a discussion about the getting transport on Saturday. You're going to agree that you're going to take the bus, and then you're going to start disagreeing about whether it should be a privately hired bus or whether you're going to take public transport. And JLo is going to intervene and capture that you have actually decided on a bus. Let's go for that. So Michelle and Domio, take it away on your agreement and disagreement in a chaotic way.
So, you know, I'm thinking that the transportation issue that, you know, we need to come to is, I think a bus is the best way to go. Cars, I don't know, you know, then we're looking at people carpooling and having to find locations, and it just becomes this conundrum, whereas getting a bus would just be so much more simpler.
I agree. I mean, the big question, though, is whether we take the public transit or we hire a private bus. I mean, a private bus is going to be really expensive, and we might end up having to have people chip in.
Yeah, but you know, I think.
Okay, stop there. So that's the point, JLo, when you want to come in. In other words, like, don't hesitate. It's far better, unless you're a particularly assertive individual, it's far better being overly assertive than underly assertive, particularly with a new group that's not used to making decisions. So I would go in there and say, Domia, that's great. What I'm hearing is both of you agreed on the bus. You know, let's just write that down. We've all agreed on the bus. Great, guys. And the remaining thing we've got to sort out is, like, what sort of bus is this going to be? Michelle, you've got an opinion on that. Take that away. Do you see what I mean? So you just summarize what I've just said, and then Michelle's going to take it away a little bit more.
So I think we should rent our own bus.
Wonderful. Okay, so I just want to stop for just a second and say this is great. We've already agreed, both of us, all of us, that we want to take a bus. So this is good. This is a win. We've got a place to start from. And now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and hear from Michelle about what kind of bus she wants and why. And then we'll go to Domio and hear what you prefer and why. And then we can go to the next stage and figure out what kind of bus we want now that we know we want a bus. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Stop there. That's okay. So that's basically, from a facilitator, that's a spot-on intervention, right? Everyone's sort of feeling good about it. So we'll try another one. So Domio, you can be the facilitator, and Dana and JLo, you can be the chaotic discussants, as it were. So let's see. Okay, so you get to your location, you're going to hand out leaflets, and you've agreed you're going to do the leafleting. You know, you were going to be just talking to people, but you've agreed you're going to do the leafleting as well. And then you're having an argument about what sort of paper it's going to be printed on. Let's put it like that. Okay, so JLo, off you go.
Yeah, I think this leafleting is fantastic. I can't wait to get started with that. I'm going to start printing it. I think we should use 100% recycled paper. It's a little more expensive, but recycled paper really sounds cool. And I think we can do a stretch on the budget. You know what I'm saying?
How can you say we can stretch our budget? Like, we've been stretching our budget in every single way for every single action.
So hold on here. I do hear that we are agreeing, right? That we are going to hand out leaflets. Okay. I just want to make sure that we get that down as something.
Yeah, it's super important.
Yeah, we have to do that. Yeah.
Okay, let's put that down, that we are going to hand out leaflets. So now just the question is what kind of paper we're going to print them on. So
I think we
I
should
heard
get the
J-Lo,
cheapest,
yeah, so Dana, what were your thoughts about
cheapest
the
paper, or then we just put the recycled symbol on the bottom of the back of the thing.
I love it.
Well,
Okay,
it looks
agreed.
like J-Lo's laughing at that one, so we're all agreed. Quick, let's move on to the next point.
That's brilliant, Dana. That's so corporate. I love it. It's like, that's something a big corporation would actually do.
Yeah, genius suggestion. Get that captured. Okay, so you basically got the idea. We haven't got enough time to sort of do that, but if you're running the workshop, I guess get people to do that a little bit more and a little bit more involved, because the main problem with facilitators, say, is the lack of confidence in interrupting the flow of play, because they have this like idea that you shouldn't interrupt the flow of play because you don't want to be hierarchical, dominating, whatever. But it's actually people really benefit of it. But of course, and I should have said this at the beginning, you are absolutely neutral. The name of the game is you're not there, even if you think like recycle paper is completely ridiculous or something, you're not there to do that. What you're there to do is build that agreement through creating that sort of confidence. And you can also, of course, like come in with what you deem to be like a creative solution out of it, if you think that will help, as long as you're not actually introducing a new idea, as it were. But the main thing is you're helping along that process. Now, the other thing, before we get on to what happens if there's not a disagreement, I think we'll just do a little role play on this as well, because it's quite fun, which is like, and we've all been in meetings when this one happens. And again, it's a lack of sort of good meeting culture. Is two people are sort of discussing something, and then someone else comes along with a completely different subject, and they just start talking about that. And the best way to have a good meeting is to be really strict on, we're talking about this now, and we'll talk about that next. Okay, that's a really good thing. So what we're going to do is we'll have J-Lo, J-Lo and Michelle, you're just talking about the main issue, which is this damn leaflet and how you're going to do it. And then Dana's going to come in and just start talking about the bus times, right? Because that's really important too. Have we actually worked out the bus times? And Domia's going to come in and say to Dana, fantastic point, Dana, we're going to talk about that next on the agenda. So if you could just return to sorting out the leaflets, then we're going to go on to the bus times. Okay, so J-Lo and Michelle, off you go.
So I kind of am on board with Dana's idea, and I really do agree with her that we need to hold back on stretching the budget, and perhaps the idea of, going with the, the stamp on there to say it's recycled.
Yeah. I'm cool with the stamp, but only if we actually put the stamp on actual recycled paper. I mean, it's kind of a principles and values thing, don't you think? I mean, the paper, we're going to leaflet, that's cool, but I think the paper really says who we are. So, we have to really maybe we can get that paper with the fibers in it, that you can see the fibers and feel it. And it's like got this nice texture. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the smoother paper though, I mean, the fibery stuff is just, it sticks, and so it's hard to separate from each other, and it just becomes just a great big hassle. I think if we go with a smoother paper, it's easier to hand them out in that way. And I think printing wise, at least with my printer, it prints
what about
much better.
soy-based ink though? How about soy-based ink? I mean, can't we use the natural, healthy 100%? I mean, like if the kids start chewing on this paper.
Oh, you guys, we have the bus times. We haven't even talked about that. Well, we got to get it figured out, because we will not be able to if the people won't even show up at the right time for the action.
Dana, that's a great point. We have to get that worked out. Otherwise, this whole thing isn't going to work. I think we got to figure out what the leaflet question right now, and figure that out, and then we'll move on to, we'll put the bus times on the agenda for the next thing to discuss. So,
right.
Yeah.
Great.
I forgot to interrupt there. You guys did a good job.
Yeah. They were just going on in great depth. Domo would have had to interject there and say, maybe this is a detail to discuss elsewhere. But anyway, we'll come on to that in a minute. But you can see, although that looks a little bit clunky, if you're in sort of disorganized meetings, it happens all the time is particularly in a larger group, which is you've got like 3 issues being discussed at once, and it's a nightmare because none of them come to conclusion because there's no focus. So it's super important. And again, you should be quite dictatorial about it. Just get in there and go, yeah, Dana, that's a fantastic point. I mean, God knows how we're going to get there if we don't know the times of the bus, for God's sake. And at the same time, let's get this sorted out. And I'm definitely putting it on the agenda, so that's fine. It's not like people are gonna, you're not getting sort of pushed down. Do you see what I mean? You go, oh yeah, that's fair enough. So, I mean, it might be worth at the beginning of the meeting just to discuss this with people, particularly again with a new group. We have agenda items. We discuss one agenda item at a time, in your little intro blurb, and what have you. Okay, so in the last 7 minutes, we're going to come on to quickly the nightmare facilitators, the facilitators nightmare, which is they can't come to a decision, and it all gets a little bit twitchy and sort of like bad-tempered, and everyone starts moving towards naming and shaming because someone's responsible for not being able to make a good decision. So again, as a facilitator, you don't want that to get to that point. You want to be using something. As soon as you sense that the mood of the meeting is declining a little bit, you want to come in with some creative solutions. And the creative solutions are, broadly speaking, 3 things. Make the group aware that this isn't getting decided because there's a bit of a problem. Do people want to carry on talking about it? In which case, always put a time limit on it, for say another 5 minutes. And then people can say, yeah, we're just about there. We're this is all right. You give us another 5 minutes. Important, it's time sensitive, and you give them another 5 minutes. The other thing is to say, okay, so this sounds, good. We've raised quite a lot of points, but we've talked about it for 10 minutes now. I suggest we talk about it again at the next meeting. So you push it over to the next meeting, which obviously you don't want to be doing loads. And potentially the most creative solution, in my view, is to suggest that 2 or 3 people, the main protagonists, the people that disagree with each other, go away, sleep on it, meet as a small subgroup. And usually when you get 2 or 3 or 4 people in the room, they haven't got a big sort of audience to have a sort of ego thing going on. And they've slept on it and they think, you know what, and it doesn't matter that much. I'm quite happy with green leaflets, if you see what I mean. Because we haven't got much time and the first 2 are reasonably straightforward, let's do the third one, which is, do you guys want to go ahead and, discuss this and come back, because we're getting a bit stuck. So where are we up to? So Dana and JLo are just getting quite heated about the leaflet design. Is it too hippie or is it too mainstream, right? And Michelle's going to come in and suggest that it's a really important subject, and we suggest that, given we've got a time limit to the meeting, you 2 go away and have a good chat about it and bring it back next week. Okay, so Dana, if you want to take it away on your objective truth on leaflet.
Yeah, I was just talking with 2 people this week, came up to me and said that they didn't want to even come to Extinction Rebellion because it's so hippie, and they're just not hippies and they're not into it. And so how could we possibly prioritize spending money on a situation where we're turning people away by doing what we're doing?
I don't know. I think it's a form of integrity, Dana. I mean, it's like we can't use corporate paper and toxic ink when we're supposed to be healing the earth. And
nobody even notices where it comes from. Who's even?
But we know who we are.
JLo, thank you so much. I think this is a super important conversation that really needs to be had. It sounds like we're not really able to kind of come to a decision right here, right now, and I'm wondering if, in lieu of time that we have remaining for the meeting, because we really do need to find a conclusion, perhaps you 2 could put together a small work group and then come forward at our next meeting with what you might decide on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great. And you added in there, Michelle, what I didn't mention, which is again to use their names and thank them for their contribution and acknowledge what they're saying is really important and it's a good subject, so they don't feel put down and pushed out or whatever. And yeah, go away, sort that out and then bring it back to the following meeting. And my last point before we finish is just quickly, this can often be done when people just start talking about technicalities. So this is another really important thing as a facilitator, is just to go, as soon as you've got the fundamental decision made, then delegate people to go and sort out the details. And that can cut a 3-hour meeting down to 1 hour by going, great, we've decided on the leaflet. What I suggest is Dana and JLo, you know, you go away and sort out the design, because I think we're all broadly agreed that you two can sort that out. Is that okay with everyone? Great. Let's move on to transport. Okay. And so that's the end of the workshop. Obviously, you can have a go around at the end and people can say what they think about it. And that's it.